So, episode one, just want to apologize. We had a bit of an issue with my microphone because Jaden
Yeah.
didn't let me know that my microphone was producing an ungodly amount of static. So, Jaden,
Well, we know for this time, so
yeah, this episode, you're going to let me know, aren't you, if my microphone decides to make me
yeah,
sound like a demon.
static's coming through right now.
You're joking.
Heavy. No.
Oh.
You call me a bit of a joker.
Oh. Wow, that was rubbish. This is Season 1, Episode 2 of the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And I'm Jaden.
This is a podcast where we rewatch classic or current films every week and decide whether they deserve a rewatch from you. This week, we rewatched Joker. I thought it was The Joker for quite a while, but it's just Joker.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Obviously last week or a couple of days ago we released our first episode, and yeah, just want to thank everybody for the awesome support we've had on Instagram, YouTube, Anchor. By our standards, we've actually taken off.
Yeah,
we were not
I didn't think it was gonna be that big of a sort of. I wasn't expecting this many people to sort of tune in.
No, it was awesome.
The sort of backing that we've had from the audience is quite well.
Yeah, no, love seeing everybody posting it on their stories, everything like that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And everybody's tuning in, so thank you so much for that. We've also gone international. We have listeners in Japan. We have listeners in the UK as well.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, well, they didn't show up on the geographic chart or whatever that we have for our analytics, but I know that there are UK listeners out there, so
okay.
Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in for episode 1. We really appreciate it. The only way is up.
Yes.
Also, episode 1, just want to apologize. We had a bit of an issue with my microphone because Jaden didn't let me know that my microphone was producing an ungodly amount of static. So Jaden,
well, we know for this time, so
yeah, this episode you're going to let me know, aren't you, if my microphone decides to make me sound
static
like a demon.
static's coming through right now.
You're joking.
Heavy. No.
Oh.
You call me a bit of a joker.
Oh. Wow, that was rubbish. All right, anything else other than Joker that we watched this week? Now, keeping in mind, we filmed our first episode 2 or 3 days ago, so haven't had much time.
Yeah.
So we haven't watched anything else.
Have you watched anything?
I did finish, last week I finished season 9 of Suits, and that was great. But obviously no spoilers for anything, because I know you are watching.
I think I'm on season 3.
Yeah, first couple of seasons are spectacular, as are in most
Does it go downhill?
TV shows. Not necessarily. I can't really say why or how it goes because it's spoilers.
Fair enough.
And I'm sure, obviously we are both very interested in what Suits has to offer from a professional standpoint. And I'm sure many people listening have working their way through Suits at the moment, so I don't want to say, but
I'm sure our audience also follows the TV show, so it's probably better to leave it up to interpretation and for them to watch and have a go at it.
What I will say though is that with TV shows it's very hard to nail the ending. We've seen
it is
Game of Thrones, that's the only example that comes to mind really, of it's so hard to stick the landing with these TV shows. But I think it does just that. So
some can do it really well though.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Clone Wars.
Oh, 100%. But then
Probably the best season.
But then the Clone Wars ending was always going to be great because it was going to tie in with everything else.
I think we all were expecting it to be.
But season 9 Suits, it finishes out the series very well, in my opinion.
Great.
So yeah, that's the other thing I watched the other week, and nothing else this week. So we'll just get straight into the Joker, shall we?
Yes.
All right, do you want to give a plot summary?
Okay, you're putting me on the spot again.
Go on. Go on.
Rightio,
I'll help you out this time.
So, Joker is a story that follows Arthur Fleck, sort of a troubled individual who...
To say the least, really.
Yeah, to say the least. He I think, I don't know what his mental disability is called, but he has this sort of uncontrollable laugh. And it's set in Gotham City, which is obviously where, you know, Arkham and Batman sort of resides.
Yep.
And I guess it's just kind of... I think it's a very heavily political sort of centered film. And as of right now, I mean, it's very reminiscent to what's happening in the United States with Black Lives Matter and all of the
Oh, you think so?
sort of protests that's going on there. 100%. I mean, if you're in the film, the sort of Joker clown protest is... it's just crazy how much of a coincidence that is to what's happening right now in 2020. But I'm going off track again as I did last episode. But it's basically Arthur Fleck kind of becoming the Joker, and in a different sense as well. It's quite a unique sort of spin on the character. But yeah, he's a comedian who does stand-up comedy. And yeah, I guess it's just one of the quotes in the film is, I think it's no one really knew who I was, but now people are starting to notice. So I guess it's kind of, I think it's a really heavily political sort of centered film. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely got those sort of tones to it. But that's interesting because I did not see the parallels to what's going on in the world at the moment at all.
Really?
That's funny. Yeah.
Wow.
I just nothing from me in that sense.
I want to know from the viewers, if any of the viewers agree with me, just post it down in the comments below.
Yeah, send us a DM. Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, so Wikipedia, our friends over there, very reliable source. They say that obviously Joker was released in 2019. It's an American psychological thriller, which I think is a good description for it.
Yeah,
it's not a superhero movie or a supervillain movie either. Produced by Todd Phillips. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We've had a bit of an issue with the internet.
Yeah.
But we're back. We're here to stay. We're here to finish off the show. We're 5 minutes in. We've already experienced another issue.
That's not good.
That's just our luck.
Yep.
What we were talking about before my internet rudely disconnected us was Todd Phillips and his previous work. Obviously, Todd Phillips is the director and writer of this movie, and he's quite a diverse man. He's been involved in Borat, The Hangover, 1, 2, and 3, War Dogs, and he was actually the producer of A Star Is Born, so the musical starring Bradley Cooper.
I never watched that.
It's pretty good as far as musicals go, anyway.
Just wasn't my sort of scene.
I think it won a couple of Oscars, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so interesting lineup to go from those sort of comedy and then a musical to then Joker.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe he just had, a bit of a depressive turn in his life. He's like, I need to tell a dark story right now. It's just like all comedy. Well, he actually said musical. The reason why he gave up the comedy was because everybody gets offended by jokes now, which I think is fair enough.
It is fair enough, yeah.
But what I think is interesting about Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix, who obviously plays the Joker in this movie, is that they've both, at one stage or another, declined to be involved in comic book related projects.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Joaquin Phoenix was actually approached to take on the role of Hulk or Doctor Strange. Now,
I couldn't see him as any of those ones.
Yeah, me neither. But that's just because we've seen him as the Joker,
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I think he might have been able to pull off a Doctor Strange. Like, he's got that sort of weird
I feel like
vibe
he's
to
too
him.
short there.
Too short?
Yeah, I think he's under 6 foot, and I sort of imagine Doctor Strange as sort of a tall figure.
I'm sure height isn't an issue when you've got magical powers, Jaden. It's not
That's true.
So they both declined roles in previous comic book movies. Todd Phillips obviously declining director-based roles. And so I thought that was
5'6".
really interesting.
Sorry.
What?
He's 5'6".
Oh, he's 5'6".
Yeah.
That's okay. If he was Doctor Strange, he'd have some magic. He'd have some levitation powers. Like, he's got that cape. He's got that cape that flies around all over the place.
That is true.
Height's not an issue when you're a superhero.
No.
Especially when he was the Hulk. Like, imagine if he was the Hulk. Oh, no. It's all CGI, isn't it? Joaquin Phoenix said something interesting before or after he took on this role. He said, I wanted to take on this role because there's no definitive portrayal of the Joker character now.
Which I completely disagree with.
That's a bold statement.
Very bold statement.
This man thinks that there has not been a definitive portrayal of the Joker character.
Heath Ledger. Are you kidding me?
Joaquin, come on, man. Maybe he just hasn't seen the movie. I mean, surely he has, but...
I think we need to make a verdict in this episode whether Joaquin or Heath Ledger is our favorite Joker, but we can do that earlier on down the road.
Yeah, let's do that at the very end. Yeah, well, we'll get into that. Pretty bold statement.
What was Todd Phillips's rejected role?
He was approached to do some MCU movies, directing.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was approached by Warner Brothers to tackle a Justice League or something like that.
I think either music sort of movie studio. I think either Warner Bros or Disney. I think if he was there is a possibility that he could be approached by either of them. Definitely after the sort of feedback and sort of reaction that Joker brought from the public. I mean, it just crushed it in the box office. I think it was over $1 billion.
Yeah, it was first R-rated movie to cross $1 billion. Obviously, nominated for about every award that it could have. Been nominated for. So
and Joaquin himself, I think he got the
Oscar.
The best actor.
Yep, love that. Speaking of which, Leonardo Dicaprio was considered for this role as Joker. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
Can you imagine Leonardo DiCaprio as this character?
Oh, that would be... no.
I think that would be disgraceful. I mean,
I don't think I could.
Leonardo DiCaprio, obviously brilliant actor, but not the Joker. No.
Yeah.
You can't have...
I don't think it's his sort of role.
I can't see Leonardo as the Joker. I'm sorry.
Did you know that Leonardo was also considered for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man?
Really? What? I mean, maybe he was a bit younger back then, so...
He was quite a bit younger, but still. I couldn't see him playing any superhero film.
Yeah. Also, to note, Martin Scorsese, so one of the most influential directors of modern times, was also involved with this movie. But he left. He left because of The Irishman, which obviously was released on Netflix.
I've heard that's pretty good as well.
Yeah, I've watched it. It's good. It's very long. I don't know if it's worth the wait, to be honest. But it's a good movie. But
I think that was nominated for a few Academy Awards as well.
It's 3.5 hours long, I think. It's just a bit of a drag.
It's like the Lord of the Rings films.
It's a bit up itself as a film. Come on, just get on with it. It's oh, look how good this film is. We're going to take all the time in the world. No. Unless you're Blade Runner, you can't do that. I'm sorry.
Lord of the Rings.
But yeah, so that's how Leonardo DiCaprio was sort of considered, because he's obviously worked with Martin Scorsese in a number of projects.
He sort of tutored him. I've seen a few interviews where Leonardo sort of said he was his tutor.
Yeah, they're good mates. So yeah, that's why Leo was considered. But Todd Phillips wrote this movie always thinking that Joaquin was going to be in this role, and I think that really shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously main characters in this movie. I think there's only really 3 main characters per se, because we obviously have Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck / the Joker.
I think there's a few more.
Well, I don't think influential characters, because this movie sort of follows Joker constantly. Every shot Joker is in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
it's all about, it just follows him wherever he goes, the camera goes, essentially. There's
Yeah.
not a shot in this movie that Joker isn't in.
Yeah. Apart from, all of the sort of building shots or all that.
Yeah.
But I think he's in every other shot.
Yeah. Also, we have Robert De Niro as Murray Franklin. Murray! As Murray Franklin.
I was also going to say Thomas Wayne is also kind of a big role in this film.
Yep.
Along with, I think it was Penny Fleck.
Yep, his mum.
Yep,
I think she
and
was great.
the girl down the corridor, which I'm not quite sure what her name was.
Yeah, me neither.
Just
But yeah,
doing a bit of a
definitely
Google search.
definitely had a bit of a meaningful role in this story. Or did she? We'll get to that in a second. All right, so what did you like about this movie? Let's kick it off. Let's start the train of compliments for this movie, because there's
quite
so
a
many.
lot.
There's so
Yeah.
many.
I just want to start by saying I think this was my favourite film of 2019 as well.
Well, what else came out in 2019? It's a pretty bold statement.
Avengers Endgame, which I
Yeah.
think this most definitely just blew Avengers Endgame out of the park in terms of story.
We had Shazam. We had Toy Story 4. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. How did that not make your list?
Oh, how was that not number one?
We also had the Lego Movie Part 2.
Never watched that.
It was okay. 1917 doesn't take your top spot.
Oh, 1917 is up there as well.
No, I agree though. Joker is a fantastic movie.
I think Joker's my favourite. But moving on, starting off with my first sort of good point about the film, I loved the soundtrack to the film. I think that sort of eerie, I think it was maybe it was a cello, that sort of eerie cello throughout the film, kind of kept you on edge the whole time. Like, is this the point where Arthur sort of snaps and, becomes the Joker? But also loved Frank Sinatra, That's Life in this film. And I think Smile, but I'm not quite sure who that one's by. Both great tracks. And it sort of suits that sort of era of sort of Gotham, kind of replicating the sort of era of New York City as well. I find them to be very, very similar.
Yeah, so obviously this movie was set in 1981, the director
Was it
says.
1980? Okay.
And I think, the environment of this film is just beautiful. And it does take its time in those first opening shots to really just, transport you,
Yeah.
Something that Blade Runner does really well. And this movie is similar in the respect that it's slow. It's a slow movie.
Which I don't mind at all.
Exactly. And it gives you some time to, really take in this environment. I want to talk about the first scene, as I did last week.
Yep.
First scene, the first shot is Arthur subtly crying while he's putting on his makeup to be his clown, because that's his job that's paying his rent at the moment, I guess. And it's fantastic acting.
That's crazy good acting,
already,
man. Yeah.
Because he's staring back at himself. You can just in his face, you can see sadness. You can see
how he's sort of pulling that smile. He's forcing himself to smile, and that tear sort of runs down his cheek.
Yeah, we get sadness. We get the brutality of just the environment. We get also the beauty of it. I think the environment is quite it's brutal, but it's quite beautiful. And the colors. But you also see in Arthur's face this darkness, and that's what carries through for the whole movie. And it's sort of, as we get further into the movie, that darkness sort of grows, and you can actually see that in his face, which I think is it's amazing. You cannot really fault Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this movie at all.
Not at all. No, not a single point where I thought, hey, they could have done that better. I think this is one of the very few films released in modern cinema that has really hit the nail on the head and absolutely smashed it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm qualified to actually try and pick out bad things of this movie. I
100%,
have no problem whatsoever with saying, oh, in Avengers Endgame, this is what's bad, or this is what they could have done better. This is why Captain Marvel was bad, and this is why the Rise of Skywalker was complete and utter trash. But like with this movie, I just feel like I'm not qualified to say that it's bad.
Yeah, with the amount of work that went into it. I mean, obviously all of, Endgame and stuff had huge amount of people working on it, but I don't know, something about Joker, it just feels, the acting is just so spectacular. You can't fault it.
I really like the scene in the opening sort of sequence of the movie where Arthur's on the street dangling his sign around as a clown.
Yeah.
Working. And his sign gets stolen, and the kids run off with it, and he chases them, and then he gets beaten up, and as soon as he gets beaten up, that cello or that violin or whatever
that string instrument,
it kicks in, and it's so good. It sets the tone so well in this movie.
The sort of what they did with his character and how they made him, an advertising sort of clown. It's so unique. I mean, we haven't seen that from Joker before. We've always seen him as, he's always been a maniac. But this sort of starting sequence sort of shows him as, a regular person just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite unique. And going on to the scene where he gets jumped by that band of kids. Did you notice that the flower on his chest?
Yes,
when he's leaks. It leaks out.
Yeah.
What a great detail.
Yeah, I love that. I actually wrote that down. Because you get this shot of Arthur who's just been taken to the cleaners by these teenagers. I've been absolutely smashed, essentially.
Yeah.
He's just lying there, and then the camera sort of pans out, and then his flower just starts leaking. You're like, wow.
Yeah. I kind of took that as, I'm not sure if I'm right, but I took that as, his heart is literally crying out. It's broken.
It's leaking.
Yeah.
Lovely. We love it. It's so cruel, but we love it.
Yeah. It makes you sort of, I think it's empathize or sympathize with his character, with Arthur. You feel sorry for him, even though you know what he's about to do.
Yeah, I want to touch on something that you said just before. You said that Arthur's sort of like this ordinary guy.
Yeah.
And I have sort of made the mistake of saying that this is such a good story because it takes this ordinary guy and it just like beats him up, this society.
Yeah.
He just gets so degraded by everything that's around him. He just slowly descends into madness and then he snaps. This man is not an ordinary guy.
He's most definitely not.
This man has issues at the very start of this movie.
Yeah, he does.
And that flashback where, so obviously Arthur's been in and out of hospital. He's been abused as a child. We learn that later on in the movie.
Yeah.
But you just get this flashback when he's sitting down talking to his therapist, I assume, or social worker, and he says like, "Oh, life was better or simpler when I was in hospital," and it cuts back to this shot of Arthur just banging his head
on the door.
It's so brutal. And there's no music or anything. It's just like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, so, some of those really awkward scenes where he's walking into a door like we see later on, or he's banging his head on a door. It actually made me laugh out loud in the cinema, even though I know I shouldn't have, but
it really disturbed me.
It's disturbing. You don't see a lot of it in cinema, and seeing it's kind of it's new and it's they've kind of done something different here. You don't see it a lot.
This man has some mental health issues, that is for sure.
Yeah, they establish it right at the start, but yeah.
Yeah. I think the scenes where he's sitting down talking to his therapist are really great at bringing out his character and that darkness within him. There's one stage where his social worker asks for his journal. So apparently Arthur's keeping this journal to make sure, he's on the right track and, he's feeling better and everything. He gives this journal to the social worker and he says, "Oh, I've also been writing some jokes in there." And the social worker's like, "Oh dear, like this man's in no state to be making jokes."
Yeah.
She opens the book and the camera sort of like lingers on it, but not enough time for you to actually read it without pausing.
Yeah.
However, we at the Rewatch, I took it upon myself. I paused it.
I also paused it. Yeah.
So hopefully we don't have the same quotes. I've got two.
I didn't write any down, but I just took the time to read them.
Yeah, so one of them is, "I just hope my death makes more sense than my life."
Yeah.
Like, jeez, that's deep.
And the way he spelt sense as well.
Oh, his spelling's rubbish.
But I think it actually had some sort of a meaning to it. I mean, I hope my death makes more sense as in,
do you mean like
the
sense
currency? Yeah. So I hope his death makes more money than his life.
Or do you think it is the other sense? Like, does it make more sense? As in, like, not the money, does his death make... Because his life doesn't have a purpose at this stage.
Yep. It doesn't.
Is his death going to have a purpose?
Yeah.
I think that's what... That could be... It's open to interpretation.
Yeah, for sure.
Another quote, which I thought... It's sort of a longer one. You sort of can't see the first half of it.
Yeah.
But I caught the end. So he says, "I looked at them. I heard them say, 'What?' Can you imagine that? Dead on the sidewalk with people stepping over you. Maybe he's happier, but I don't want to die with people stepping over me. I want people to see me." Now,
Wow.
So this is an instance where someone's obviously been murdered on the sidewalk and or killed, or maybe he's just dead, and somebody's standing over them. And Arthur's looked at them and they're like, "Oh, what are you looking at?" sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people just walking over this dead body on the sidewalk. It's pretty crazy stuff. It tells you more about Gotham City as an environment, as a state. Also, "I want people to see me," is what he says at the very end of that quote. This is like great foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because one of the final, when Arthur's giving that monologue, that fantastic monologue, in the final sequence. So,
what monologue were you talking about?
When he's on the Murray Franklin
show. Yeah.
He's like, oh, maybe it was just before that, because he's saying, "I used to think that I didn't exist, but I do," and
or when he's like, people didn't notice me, but now they're starting to notice, or something like that.
Love it. He's this man that's been forgotten by society, essentially.
But as soon as something big happens that involves the Wall Street, the three Wall Street guys, as soon as something happens that the media actually cares about, that's when sort of Arthur and that sort of low level sort of life in Gotham actually rises to the top, and people start to look at it and sort of take it in, and hey, something's going on here.
Yeah, I want to get to that subway scene shortly, but first I just want to touch on the beautiful shots of Arthur walking home, or walking to
Joker
work.
stairs.
Yeah, brilliant. I just love those shots, because Arthur obviously doesn't have a car. He walks everywhere.
Yeah.
And the camera follows him everywhere he goes. This is really a story of like a camera being placed on this man who's just going about his life, just wreaking havoc towards the end. But yeah, I just love that. Those shots of Arthur just walking home, and how it really takes time to make you have enable you to digest this environment. I really like the environment in this movie. Another thing I liked, when the manager is telling, so Arthur, he's working as a clown.
Mm-hmm.
He's not doing too well for himself.
No.
He's not particularly good at his job. At one stage, he's given a gun. Bad decision.
Yeah, it's like giving a child a gun. Yeah, it's not good.
Arthur says himself, "I'm not supposed to have a gun." So obviously, his mental
state, he knows that he shouldn't be wielding a gun.
yeah, but this stupid guy just gives one to him anyway.
Yeah.
And so he's got a gun now. He takes the gun to a children's hospital to do his act.
That's another part that made me laugh as well. Is when
That
it
made
just
you
fell
laugh?
out.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I know I'm really dark, but yeah.
I thought it was just a brutal scene. So obviously he's dancing around, all these kids, they're clapping along, and then this gun falls out of his pocket, and he's like, essentially like, oh dear, like,
Yeah.
and he puts it away, tries to, rub it off, like, just go on with his act, but no.
Yeah.
He's fired then, but yeah, just before that, he's told, like, you're on your last chance, essentially, by his manager.
Yeah.
And when his manager's telling him off, his voice sort of fades away, and the camera focuses on Joaquin's face.
Smile.
And you can just see the madness creeping out of him ever so slightly. So yeah, beautiful.
That really reminds me of the animated Mark Hamill sort of Joker with that sort of massive creeping smile.
Yeah.
It was so well done, that sort of scene where everything kind of, fades out, like you said, and it's really focusing on his face and, that smile sort of growing.
Yeah. Before we touch on the subway scene, obviously Arthur's got this medical condition which causes him to laugh uncontrollably.
I think I know what scene you're about to jump onto.
No. I'm going to ask you do you think this was the right choice of, bringing out that laugh? Because obviously Joker's, he's famous for having a laugh. He likes a good laugh, this man.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was a good story choice, making it something that he can't control?
I think it was done fantastically, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was gonna say at the start, I think the study that went into his mental illness was done with incredible detail. I mean, I remember watching an interview on it, and they actually looked at videos of insane people that had this condition, and the sort of that sort of crackle they have in their laugh, that it's like you can feel it in your throat, you can feel your throat really sore, it's a dry laugh. I think that was done fantastically.
Again,
and obviously
incredible acting.
It makes you like he's in pain when he's laughing. Great acting. Yeah
He clutches his throat. He tries so hard to stop it, but he just can't.
Yeah.
And there's so many instances in this movie where his laugh, he sets off his laugh, and he's just trying to control it.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's grabbing his throat, and you feel sorry for him in those instances.
As soon as he starts, he can't stop. It's like a chain. It just keeps going on and on. Like it's really sad, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just watching him, trying to control his laugh, but he can't really do anything about it.
Definitely one of the things that makes you sympathize with him.
Yeah.
When you're watching the movie, because not a lot of things do. Like, this man he's hardly human at this stage. He's sort of just he's at the will of his emotions. He's just going around, not really having any purpose. So you're sort of you're distant from this character. You sort of pity this character at the start, but it's that medical condition and the bad luck that he has, getting fired from his job and being treated so badly by his colleagues, essentially. It just makes you empathize with him. Otherwise, I think this movie, everybody would just sit in this movie and think, this is such a bad character. Like, what an idiot. I don't want this guy to achieve anything. I think he should go in prison, or someone should kill him. Or, this movie, it tells the story of this character who nobody's going to like, but it makes you sympathize with him.
Touching on that, I'm not sure if you've seen American Psycho, who stars Christian Bale. It's a really similar sort of dark and eerie film as to the Joker, and it's kind of like the complete opposite. Whereas the American Psycho, Christian Bale, you don't feel any sort of empathy for him. It's the complete opposite in the Joker, where you go through the film, kind of rooting for Arthur. You feel sorry for him when, when he kills the three guys. It's what's about to happen. You know that he's done something wrong, but you still feel sorry for him somehow.
Yeah, 100%. It's really credit to Todd Phillips, the writer of this movie.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that subway scene. Obviously, if you've reached this far in the show and you haven't seen the Joker and you want to go in not knowing a lot, we're sort of going to get into the second half of this movie now, which I think really sells this movie. I think the movie is great in the first instance, like in that first half. But it's that final act that really does it for me.
The second act is just where it shines the most.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about that subway scene. What did you think of it?
Let me just go to my notes real quick.
Yeah, so obviously Joker's been given this gun. Bad idea. He's on the subway home. Some bankers come onto some sort of like Wolf of Wall Street type of characters come onto the train.
Yeah.
And just think, oh no, here we go. They start, talking to this young lady who doesn't really want anything to do with them. The bankers, I think they're drunk as well. Something bad's going to happen.
Yeah.
In this instance, somebody's going to get hurt. It's going to be a question of who, really. So then these bankers, they start picking on this lady. Arthur starts laughing because, what a bad instance to have this condition. Yeah.
And I think in that scene where it's Arthur, the three Wall Street guys, and the lady looks over to this guy in a clown mask and this clown costume, and she sees him as the most normal person in this sort of situation, which is really eye-opening. It's quite crazy that you can look to a clown and sort of be like, I need help.
She sort of looks at him with that look of like, help me. This.
Yeah. But as soon as Arthur breaks out into that laugh, she's like, oh, everyone around me is the same.
And she just gets out of there.
Yeah.
She just yeets herself out of there. Fair enough. Yeah. So obviously Arthur gets beaten up by these Wall Street dudes because of course he does. He's a clown. And then he pulls out his gun, kills all of them. He kills two of them first.
Two of them, yeah.
And then severely injures the third.
In his leg,
just goes limping off. And I just think when the Joker was following this man who's on his last sort of, legs essentially, he knows he's probably going to die, but he's just like crawling away from the Joker. Another thing I want to talk about with regards to this subway scene, did a bit of research on it. It's actually based on the subway shooting scene, shooting in New York City.
I was watching it and it felt so real that I thought it had to be based on something, but I didn't really go into the detail of it.
Arthur Fleck's character is actually partially based on the shooting's perpetrator. I won't say his name, but obviously, just the element of realism in this movie, I think, is really one of the selling points for it throughout. And I think this shows that they really care about telling this story in the most realistic way possible.
Yeah.
As I was saying before, I just love. Obviously, I don't love what's going on itself, but I think it's a great scene when you have this banker who's just been shot in the leg and he's crawling away, and Arthur's just like walking after him. Like he's just completely been overtaken by his emotions at this stage. He's going to kill this guy, and he's just frantically trying to find him so he can kill him.
Yeah.
So I love that, and obviously the final shot when he's walking up the platform, and the banker's crawling up the stairs, and then he shoots him, and everything goes quiet. It's fantastic. But you wanted to add something before about the subway shooting scene?
Yeah, so Arthur carries around this little card which explains his disability, and in a previous scene where he gives it to a lady on a bus, she actually takes it and doesn't give it back, even though it says on the back, please kindly return this card, which I felt really sad. It's the one thing Arthur has,
Did she not give it back?
She didn't give it back. She just took it away from him.
What?
Yeah, but moving on, it also happens in the subway scene where just before the three subway dudes jump Arthur, he reaches for his card, but he doesn't get it in time to explain his laugh, which was really sad as well.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that. He reaches for his bag and they're like,
yeah,
no, you don't need that.
Yeah.
Little do they know that he's got a gun under his vest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also want to talk about the fact that he's a failed stand-up. What did you think of that comedy element, that I want to be a comedian, nobody's laughing at him, or nobody's laughing with him, rather, everybody's laughing at him.
There was a quote which Penny Fleck said,
yeah,
why do you want to be a comedian? Don't you have to be funny for that, or something along those lines?
Yeah.
That hits really hard. Yeah. That's really sad, man. You know, he's trying his best to sort of become something of himself, and you know, his mum, that's just time and time again, you know, beaten him down in life, is just, she's just even doing it again at such an old age. She just doesn't give up on him. But yeah, I felt that all of the sort of comedy club or the bar scenes, there was a scene where he was sort of studying, I should say, this other stand-up comedist. Is it comedist? No. Comedian. I don't know where I was going with that. He was studying this other stand-up comedian, and all the jokes that the guy was saying, everyone else was laughing. And then when he says something that's, you know, just ordinary or not really funny at all, Arthur laughs at that. Yeah. So he kind of laughs on the offbeat, you know, on the sort of intervals between everything.
Yeah, it just shows how disconnected he is from society.
Yeah, and then he looks around at everyone else, sort of takes it in, and when the next joke came in, everyone laughs. Arthur just got it in at the end, and he laughs at that joke. So he's kind of, you know, studying it. He's like trying to fit in with, you know, society. He's like trying to study the human sort of, you know, motion and how they sort of interact with people.
Yeah. So do you think this character actually doesn't know what is funny and what is not? Because I didn't actually pick that up. I thought he was just sitting there taking notes because he's like, oh, I want to do this comedy thing. And then his laugh was uncontrollable in those offbeat instances.
Yeah, I don't think he knows what is funny and what is not, because he also carries around a little notebook. I think it's in his journal. He carries that around, and he writes down all the things that, you know, people think are funny, and that the other comedians are sort of studying. He writes down all of their punchlines and what hits well with the audience. So he doesn't actually know what lands well at all. So I don't think he's the best fit for a comedian.
Oh, I wouldn't say so, no.
He's trying his best, but he doesn't really understand comedy at all. And we see that at the end, you know, you want another joke, Murray, but
Murray.
Yeah, we all know what happens there.
So there's two things in this movie that I feel are open to interpretation. And this sort of concept of ambiguity in movies, I feel sort of, you know, you think of movies like Inception. Sort of comes up in Blade Runner 2049. But lots of great movies have that sort of ambiguity where the audience can sort of make up their mind about what's real, what's not, or whether something happened or whether it didn't, whether it's just in someone's head or whether it actually happened. Like in Prisoners, how I was talking about last episode. You know, there's two things. Arthur's relation to the Wayne family, I feel as though that can be up to interpretation. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about that. And also the girlfriend in this movie.
Sophie. Yep.
I feel like that's a lot simpler. The movie tells you that most of it's not real. But yeah, in terms of the Wayne family connection there, do you think that Arthur's mother, obviously she had a relationship with Bruce Wayne, who's this big CEO.
Thomas Wayne, rather.
Yes. Bruce Wayne's Batman. So Thomas Wayne, Bruce
The
Wayne's
child
father.
in this film.
Yes, he's not Batman yet. Um, we can only assume that he goes on to become the Batman.
Robert Pattinson.
Oh, I don't think so. We'll get into that in a minute. A second.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
In terms of the connection there, do you think that Thomas Wayne and Penny Fleck had a child?
No.
This child, was distorted. Penny started having mental health issues, and then Thomas Wayne just discarded them and forged their adoption papers. Or do you think Arthur was just abandoned one day? Penny took him in and abused him, and Bruce, Thomas Wayne, rather, didn't. He's got no connection to Arthur.
Definitely the second option there.
You think?
100%. I feel like Thomas Wayne definitely has the sense of, he knows what's going on, whereas Penny Fleck, she's all sorts of crazy. And I mean, we see scenes where she is in a mental asylum herself, so she's obviously not stable, and I truly believe that she adopted this kid and beat the living hell out of him. Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting because I don't believe that.
Oh, really?
When I walked out of this movie, I was like, wow, the Joker is related to Batman. Everyone's like, no, he's not. I'm like, well, yeah. Like, were you just watching the same movie that I was watching? Like, I like to think that there was a cover-up because I think that's cool how the Joker and Batman are related in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, they would essentially be half-brothers, wouldn't they?
Yep.
And that's actually something that happens in the comics at one stage. But I think that's a really interesting concept, how you have these two characters who are opposite sides of a coin, essentially.
Yep.
But then, obviously, they're related. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like to believe, obviously it's open to interpretation. They never give you a concrete answer. Some would say that the adoption papers are a concrete answer. However, I don't think so. I think Thomas Wayne, I think he could have forged them. I think this could have been a cover-up.
Oh, I can definitely see where the sort of ambiguity sort of lies in this sort of instance in the film. I can definitely see how it can go both ways. And I think they definitely did that on purpose. But yeah, I don't disagree with your sort of theories at all, because it could definitely go either way.
I think that's just a more interesting element.
Yeah.
Me. But
yeah,
as I said, it's up to interpretation. I think that's what's fantastic. Obviously, we both have different opinions. Watching the same movie, we both think different things happened. And that's great because, you can discuss it with everybody and say, well, are those adoption papers real, or has Thomas Wayne orchestrated this whole thing? Has he cast out Penny to the point where she's gone insane and abused her child? Do you believe that this Penny actually had a boyfriend at one stage? Because that's what's said in the adoption papers, that the child, being Arthur, was abused by Penny's boyfriend while she watched on. Like, how's Penny going to have a boyfriend? I mean, forgive me. Maybe she's very attractive when she's younger, but this is an insane woman.
Yeah. Even maybe then, maybe Thomas was the boyfriend.
Yeah. That's what
I
thought.
Don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, I just love that ambiguity. Love that. Have you seen Inception?
I saw some of it. It was kind of like Blade Runner for me, where it was kind of slow, but I definitely want to go. You find it hard
to stick to movies, hey?
I do. Yeah. All my friends critique me on it, but yeah, I would definitely want to go back and watch it though, because, obviously it's one of the best. It's a highly prestigious film. I definitely want to go rewatch that at some point.
I just bring that up because the final shot of that movie is probably the most ambiguous, sort of open to interpretation sequence of any movie ever.
I've got another one, but go on. Yep.
Well, what's your other one? Do you want to say that?
I was going to say The Shining. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen that.
At the end, there's this sort of... Obviously, none of this is going to, spark any sort of memory in your brain, but for the viewers, if you've seen it, at the end, the camera sort of pans out on this photo it's an older photo, and it pans out, and we actually see, I think it's Jack from memory. We see him in the photo frame, and you kind of wonder how is all of the movie being set in the future, but you see him in this photo frame in the past, and it's the most confusing ending I've ever seen to a movie ever. But you're still seeing, I'm still seeing in my recommendations speculative videos like discussing the ending of The Shining, because people still haven't figured out what it actually meant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be one of the greatest horror films of all time.
Oh, it's a great film.
Obviously Jack Nicholson as Jack. Definitely something
I
to
don't think
watch.
it was. I don't think it was Jack. I was thinking of Jack Nicholson, the actor. But I can't remember what his character.
No, his
called.
character's Jack.
Is it Jack?
Yeah. But yeah, interesting. I love the fact that this movie has certain things that are open to interpretation. Another thing that is ambiguous, but the movie sort of tells you what's real or what's not, is Arthur's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So after the subway shooting, Arthur comes back home. He lives next door to a young mother. He just like busts into the house and, makes out with her. And we're just supposed to assume that they're together now.
Yeah.
And then later on, it's revealed that it was all made up in Arthur's head. And yeah, what do you think of that?
It was definitely a very unexpected turn for me.
I was completely fooled in the cinema the first time, I must say.
100%. I was like, wow, what they've done there is just incredible. Let me quickly go to my notes on this. I think I wrote something down.
It's again another instance in the film where you sympathize with him, because things start to go right for him.
Yeah.
From that instance onwards, and you're like, oh, maybe this is going to be an uplifting story.
Hope. Yeah.
Nope, it's all made up in his head. This man is really a madman.
A figment of his imagination. What he really wants, the perfect sort of girlfriend to be. This is what he imagines, who he sees himself with, and what he wants his life to be. But that's kind of stripped away from him at the end. And we see all the scenes where he's sitting in the hospital by himself, or he's, I can't remember the other ones, but it's
just
like
going on dates with her and things, just completely made up in his head.
Yeah, it's a really harsh sort of strike. It's wow. He's really by himself in this sort of dull world.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that twist, per se. I also, the sequence that I want to talk about is when he kills his mum. So his mum has a heart attack. This is after some police officers come to Arthur's house and say, we need to speak to Arthur about the subway murders.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur's not there. Penny's like, oh my God, my son, he might have done this thing, has a heart attack. Goes to hospital. Arthur shows up to hospital. One thing leads to another. He ends up just suffocating her, essentially.
Yeah, was that after he found out about his abuse, or? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
When he went to the mental asylum and he got the old sort of file which had everything in it, explained everything, and that's when he really found out, hey, there's no one in my life that's actually supporting me. I mean, his girlfriend's been taken from him, his mum's been taken from him, and I think at this sort of point in the show, he sort of starts to understand, hey, maybe Murray isn't the sort of guy I thought he was. He's always, showing that clip of me, kind of trying to get a laugh out of me. So he's
so
just really isolated.
Just want a bit of context there. So obviously Murray Franklin is this late night show host. Obviously a comedian himself, I'm guessing. He pulls up a clip to show his audience. And the clip is of Arthur in this comedy club, which we see earlier in the movie, where Arthur just has a laughing fit and he can't really get out his jokes. It's a really sad scene.
It is.
Really makes you sympathize with the character again. Um, but yeah, so Murray Franklin sort of shows the clip. He's like, "Hey, look at this Joker," and it's sort of like a one-off like remark. Murray doesn't even remember that he referred to Arthur as the Joker,
Yeah.
but Arthur remembers.
Mm.
And yeah, it comes back towards the end of the movie.
He really remembers everything, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, even with Gary, the short guy, you know, thinking
Yes.
about that scene, but we might have to get onto that later.
Let's talk about that right now. Let's
let's do that now. Yeah.
So Joker's descending into madness. This is, I think, just after he's killed his mum, and he's gotten a phone
celebrating.
call. Yeah, he's gotten a phone call from Murray Franklin. Murray wants him to come on the show. Joker's thinking, "Oh, this might be my moment."
This is his big break.
Yes. I don't know whether he's actually going there to intend to, propel his comedy career, or perhaps he has other intentions.
Yeah.
We find out later on, but
yeah.
But anyway, so Joker, his friends from the clown business,
friends in quotations,
come over. Yes. One of them is an idiot. The others are quite a nice guy. Little person, obviously. And so then Arthur just takes out a pair of scissors.
Randall, that was his name,
and just does the thing,
stabbing him. Yeah.
It's by far the most brutal scene in the movie.
Oh, it's really gory. Yeah.
But in terms of like what other movies have shown, this is not a particularly violent movie per se.
Not at all.
I think it's a violent story from the aspect of it's a dark story. It's not a nice tale.
Yeah. I mean, it's an R-rated film, and only once we get to see, twice we get to see intense blood. But it's still rated R. I mean, you get worse films, that are MA 15+, and I think what adds to the R rating is the sort of dark undertone that the film actually sort of emphasizes. All
of the critics for this movie were, and a lot of people on Twitter as well, were sort of saying that this movie is overly violent, and it's an instance of where a movie is just violent for the sake of violent.
Not at all.
Being violent. And that's just complete and utter misconception of this movie.
Yeah.
It's not a violent movie per se. That scene is very violent. It's a very gory scene.
Yeah.
But apart from that, apart from that scene and the subway murders and obviously the final sequence, not a lot of violence in this movie.
Yeah.
Which is realistic again, in a sense. So
yeah,
enjoyed that. But yeah, critics are absolutely not on the money there. They're madmen. So yeah, do you want to talk about the final act of this movie?
Yeah. I'm just trying to find my notes here. I don't think I wrote too much down about it.
The final act for me sort of makes this movie.
It's really where it shines. The movie's brilliant in a sense, but the final act was just incredible.
I remember just thinking, the first part's good. It gets you invested, but the third act's really where it takes off and takes the movie to another level. I really enjoy the final act of this movie because obviously Joker goes along to the Murray Franklin show. While he's walking there, we have that awesome scene with that incredible song in the background of Joker dancing down the stairs. He loves it, having a great time. Obviously, there's no speaker. He's just like dancing for the sake of dancing.
Yeah.
On these stairs, but we have an awesome song in the background.
Yeah.
Really love the song choice. Not exactly sure what the song's actually called. But to reference our first episode, we said the music in Into the Spider-Verse is good, but some of the best songs in that album are not songs that enhance the movie. Then they're not songs in the background. Most of the awesome songs in that movie are songs that Miles listens to on his headphones.
Yeah.
This movie, Joker, it brings that music that elevates the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's all a soundtrack. The Joker doesn't put on his Sony headphones and listen to 1980s music. But yeah, I love the music in this movie.
It was incredible, yeah.
Music has never had so much of an effect on me while watching this film.
Really?
I remember being in the cinema from this film, getting out of the cinema, just being like, whoa, like it was an experience. And I think the music really, really hits you in terms of getting you into the universe and bringing you into the film. As soon as that violin or that cello, that string instrument in that first scene, as soon as that music takes off, I'm in. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to talk about that final scene where Joker is on the Murray Franklin
show? Radio.
Do you want to know that joke? Murray.
The way he performs that line is just, it's so creepy, but it also has some sort of comedy towards it.
That's what Joaquin brings. He's always doing more than one thing in his acting.
Yeah.
You look at his face and you see sadness, you see anger, you see darkness, you see just brutality, and you obviously got the Joker mask. So he's covering up his face.
Yeah.
But you still read so much just from his eyes. Spectacular.
He paints his face, but it still shines through.
Oh, can we talk about the fact that he paints his tongue? That's actually disgusting. I have an issue with that. Like, yuck.
That is a bit disgusting. You are right.
Worse. Why is he painting his tongue? Like, it's a great scene of him just putting on his makeup before going on to the Murray Franklin show.
Yeah.
But he just whips out his tongue, paints it white. Like, yuck.
I feel like with the whole what we didn't like section we did last time, a lot of if you're gonna raise points on that this time around, it's a lot more subjective. I mean, all of the stuff that you didn't like, it could probably it's not up to, the writing, or it's not up to the directing. It's more so up to those actors doing such a good job that
100%. I think it works in the movie for the sense of like why are you doing this?
Yeah,
we're constantly asking that of the Joker.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was just an improvised thing that Joaquin Phoenix did.
Yeah, like the bathroom scene where he was dancing, completely improvised.
Completely improvised. You're right. Todd Phillips himself and the Joker were just in a bathroom, obviously on set. They're not just in some random bathroom.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what should we do here? And Joaquin is just like, film me. I got this. And then it just like does this incredible dance scene. Just
fits so well.
So iconic.
And we see that again at the Murray Franklin show where he's sort of dancing before he comes out onto stage. That sort of weird, stretch dance sort of thing. But yeah, back to the final sort of act, where, we have to say it sometime, Joker shoots Murray in the head, after saying that sort of massive monologue of his.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The monologue, yeah.
I love that.
I think one of the lines from the monologue was, if it was me who was shot in the subway, you would walk right over me, sort of, kind of pushing the sort of point that, the lower class in Gotham City, no one really cares about them.
Yeah.
And then when, Thomas Wayne makes a big sort of statement, hey, the Wall Street guys, how could people do this? Everyone sort of, gets up and is interested in it now. But obviously all the lower sort of people, push the clown movement. And it's just crazy how much it destroys Gotham City. I just want to know the percentage from, posh to poor in the actual city, because the amount of people that went along with that clown movement was insane.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We haven't really touched on that in terms of the political movement that Arthur um, creates, not
Yeah.
like by accident, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
he doesn't. Obviously, he kills these bankers, and all of these lower class people think he's a hero because, that's three more pricks off the street. That's what his imaginary girlfriend says.
Yeah.
Um, so they uphold the Joker image, or the clown image, as a hero.
Yeah.
And Murray asks this to Joker. He's like, "Did you try and start a movement by killing these people?" Because
Yeah.
Arthur admits it. Um, there's some just really tense scenes, and then Arthur's just like, "Oh yeah, I killed those guys."
Yeah.
Murray's like, "I'm sorry, what?"
He thought he was joking at
Yeah,
first.
he's like, "That's not a funny joke." He's like, "It's not a joke, Murray."
And even before that, before he comes out onto the show, when he's in his little room, and Murray asks him, what's with the look? Arthur himself, he says, I'm not a man of religion. I'm not trying to push any political sort of influence here.
He doesn't believe in anything. That's
He
what
doesn't.
says.
That's what he says. I don't believe in anything. He's essentially created this movement on accident, like he said. He didn't really mean for any of it to happen.
Yeah, interesting.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on in the final act?
There's a really nice shot of when Murray Franklin's talking. You have this obviously very civilized man, and in the shot, you can sort of see this blurred image of Joker's face.
Okay.
Just such a great contrast of just this non-human character, this insane individual with this bright makeup, who's like blurred out, and then you have Murray in his suit and everything. I just think it's a really awesome way of showing how not human this character was.
Yeah.
I just really like that shot.
Yeah. And I also wanted to touch on, I just kind of picked up on this, that, Joker he's such an insane character, and he puts on this clown sort of mask. He is essentially the clown in society. Everyone's laughing at him, not with him, but at him. Sort of, they kind of birthed him. Penny Fleck birthed him into this sort of insane character. He could have been an ordinary guy, fit in with everyone else, but he wears this clown costume, bright colors, stands out. He's just not the piece of the puzzle to fit into society at all.
Yeah, and society just beats him down and beats him down, and then he hits back.
He eventually cracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bound to happen.
Yeah. Really love that the final scene when just after Murray's been killed and Joker's in the police car and gets into a car accident.
Yeah.
And then
the ambulance
suddenly
slams into the side. Yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly Joker's out on top of the police car and he's doing his dance, and
Doing his
everyone
dance.
is parading him like a god essentially.
Yeah.
And that's where Arthur, this character, is finally seen by society.
Yeah. He's out into the light now. Yeah. And that's where I would also say that the Joker is born. That's when, the iconic Joker, with obviously he smears the blood into the smile. That's when we see, the Joker we've all been, sort of waiting throughout the film for.
Yeah. Anything else that you really liked? Because I want to run through quickly some things I didn't like. I don't want to give them much time at all because this is a fantastic movie.
Yep.
I don't think I'm qualified to say what's wrong with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's some more ambiguous things that I want to talk about, and then we'll sort of get into what we think is next in terms of this character or this universe that Todd Phillips has created.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what I didn't like, obviously, Joker is given a gun at the early on in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Such a stupid decision by this man, but okay, if we say that character is stupid, then fine. Whatever.
This is what I was touching on with everything could be up to, it's subjective. Is it the acting that is so well done, and that the story's so well done that it makes you really hate these sort of people.
Yeah.
And that's, but yeah, go on.
Arthur's manager, his clown manager, is very quick to get on Arthur's case for losing the sign.
Yep.
Arthur says, like, I was jumped by little kids, and he just doesn't believe him.
Yeah.
I think, like, come on, man, have a bit of respect. But maybe that's what we're supposed to feel towards this manager. We're supposed to feel like this man is not a good person, and we empathize with Arthur because of that. So
there you go.
Sure. The detectives are also douches.
Yep.
They ask if his laugh is real, or is it just an act?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty low of a police officer, considering the fact that they've probably researched his medical condition because they think he's a suspect in this case.
Yeah.
Painting his tongue is disgusting for me. And the cops are pretty bad at their job, I will say that.
Yeah.
And Robert De Niro is also pretty stupid too. Also, in that subway sequence, Arthur shoots that last guy as many times as he can before his revolver runs out of ammo. But then
there was definitely more bullets. Yeah. I never really thought about that, but go on.
So Arthur empties his gun on this guy. He's got no ammo left. But in the final sequence, he shoots Murray Franklin. So either Arthur popped to the shops to get ammo, and we just didn't see it, or Arthur's gun just reloads itself, like Star Wars Battlefront. So I would have liked to have seen that scene where he goes to buy ammo.
Yeah.
Or maybe, get it off somebody, but
I even feel like in that subway scene, in the revolver, how many rounds are there? I think there's 7 or 6.
Well, he shoots all of them because he keeps on shooting the gun, and then eventually it clicks and he runs out of ammo.
Even though, however many slots are in the revolver, I feel like he shot. There we go. He shot more bullets than was actually in the round. I feel like he shot too many.
Something to
just
really
considering
take a closer look at.
Yeah.
If we're trying to fault this movie, because it's so hard to.
It's impossible.
Movie.
Yeah.
Something that I failed to mention about the girlfriend, when we do find out that his girlfriend's not real, Arthur walks out of the room, and then we don't see the girlfriend again.
Yeah.
Arthur goes back to his apartment, and then we hear ambulance signs outside of the window in the next scene.
No.
Did he kill his girlfriend? Another thing that's up to interpretation. I only found this out.
That's completely speculative. We don't actually know.
Rewatch, because I never picked up on this before.
Wow.
He walks out. We don't see the girlfriend again. We hear sirens. That's it. It's entirely plausible that he did kill her, because
I
he's
would
killed
not put
so
that
many
past
other
Arthur's
people.
character at all. Yeah.
So very interesting. Something that I did not pick up until this rewatch. So there you go.
And just quickly going back a bit, before we probably wrap up and move on to the sort of final part of the show, the scene with Thomas Wayne and was it Martha Wayne?
Yeah.
Their death. I didn't think they were going to do it in this film because it's been sort of
done so many times, just like a Spider-Man origin story.
It's like, beating a dead horse. It's been done so many times. The iconic, grabbing the pearl necklace and the pearls flying everywhere. We've seen it so many times, but I feel like they could have done without it, which is probably my only sort of fault with the film. But they're probably setting up Bruce Wayne becoming Batman somehow, so they probably might have needed that. Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Because I want to talk about what we think could be a sequel, or I don't think there will be a sequel, but anything that's going to come into this universe. So any other thoughts before we...
No, I think we just move straight on to the the sequel. Yeah.
Obviously, we set up a pretty awesome origin story for Batman in this movie.
Yep.
However, I don't necessarily want a Batman movie to be set in this universe to include Joaquin Phoenix's character because, one, this Joker is not the Joker from The Dark Knight.
No.
This Joker is not a criminal mastermind. He's the exact opposite.
Not at all, yeah.
So I don't like the Joker. This Joker just goes around doing whatever he feels is necessary.
Yeah.
He's not, robbing banks and stuff. So I don't think a Batman movie in this universe could work per se.
Yeah.
I don't want a sequel to this either because I think this is perfect by itself.
I'm pretty sure both Joaquin and Todd Phillips said that they wanted to make a sequel, but no, this is more so like a Quentin Tarantino film for me.
It's a one-off standalone.
You make one, it's great on its own, and then you move on to another sort of another film. I'd love to see another film that's sort of in this dark sort of undertone that Todd Phillips created because this was spectacular.
What other DC character do you think would work well for this formula?
Probably Deathstroke.
Okay.
Deathstroke would work quite well. I don't know if you know who Deathstroke
No,
is.
I do. Yeah, I do.
You do? Yeah, I think that could work quite well as this sort of undertone. Also, like a Harley Quinn film would work really well because she's kind of the female equivalent of Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's probably my top two.
I think an Arrow film could work well in this.
I was gonna say Arrow as well. Yeah.
Because he's like a Hawkeye. He's a stupid character when you put him up against, or put him alongside your Batmans and your Supermans and your Iron Mans and your Captain Americas. He's just a man with a bow. So this sort of simplistic style would, I think, work well with a character like Arrow.
And I mean, watching the CW Arrow TV show I used to, his motives are kind of similar to Joker's in a sense that, he does what he feels is needed, not what society deems correct. He kills people that deserve to be killed in his mind. He's not the, generic sort of, hero. He's really an anti-hero in a sense. He's not Captain America who saves everyone, or he's not Iron Man who is the playboy billionaire who, tries to protect everyone and obviously, sacrifices himself, but that's another story. Arrow's he's a dark character as well, and his upbringing, on the island.
Yeah. No, so no sequel for this movie, no other movie that's set in this universe. Let's do another character, standalone, low budget.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do with this formula, because I think this is the best comic-based film of all time, on its own.
Really?
Excluding, films that have sequels.
Okay, yeah, standalone I would definitely agree with. Yep.
And it doesn't take a lot of material from the comics itself, however it is comic-based, so...
Yeah.
Best comic-based film of all time for me.
And this film particularly excites me for the upcoming 2021 Robert Pattinson Batman film.
Very much so,
which obviously we haven't heard much of, but I think it's going to be really good.
Okay, quickly before we go, Heath Ledger's Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, compare.
Which one is better?
I don't think we can say that. I think they're so different.
Yep.
I think they're both incredible, but I don't see them as the same character. I mean, obviously they are, but they're so different.
They're two completely different Jokers in it. Yeah.
And I think both of them are incredible.
Yep.
I think they're both on the same level for me.
The Heath Ledger's Joker just finds a special place in my heart because obviously Dark Knight is just one of my all-time favorite films.
Yeah.
But going into this film, even with the trailer alone, the trailer was spectacular. I knew that Joaquin Phoenix's Joker was definitely going to be up there alongside Heath Ledger's.
Yeah, Joaquin has done something in this movie that nobody thought possible, and that's give an interpretation of the Joker character that is as good as Heath Ledger's.
Yeah, and even when he receives his Academy Awards, how he sort of shouts out, Heath Ledger, he kind of gives his regard to him.
Very humble.
So well done, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. This is worth a rewatch, in my opinion, 100%. Especially if you're a comic-based, or you're a comic fan, you're a fan of superhero films. I think this is worth a watch for the ordinary person. I think it's a great movie.
Yep.
Fantastic acting from Joaquin Phoenix. But I can see why people would be turned off if they didn't know what a Joker was. So that's fair.
It's not a comic movie at all.
You don't need to know anything to go into this movie. But yeah, fantastic story. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's episode. What a shame.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search The Rewatch. We come up first.
Yes.
Thank you to everyone who has subscribed and viewed our first episode. We're so happy with the response.
Yep.
We're so keen to keep on bringing you this amazing content.
Yes.
You can follow us on Spotify. You can favorite us on Anchor. And we not only have a larger than anticipated audience, we actually have an international audience. So thank you all for tuning in. We both really appreciate it.
Yep.
Stay tuned on Instagram. You can follow us there at The Rewatch Pod to find out what we're rewatching next week. It's a Star Wars film.
Yes.
Let's
Finally
go.
getting into it.
All right. Signing off. Goodbye.
Catch you later.